For more on this story and what it could mean for Venezuela, we turn to investigative journalist Ben Swann. Thanks for joining me, Ben.
Yeah, Scottie, thanks for having me on.
Okay, I have to be honest with you, this is very troubling because Erik Prince, the founder of Blackwater, is proposing using mercenaries to overthrow the Venezuelan government. How would that work? And who is Prince pitching this idea to? And does the White House actually seem open to it?
Yeah, so Erik Prince, as you said, the founder of Blackwater, it's very controversial because of the involvement they had in the Iraq War. And then at one point, they kind of brought down Blackwater, rebranded it, gave it a new name. But the idea is he's pitching 5,000 mercenaries to go into Venezuela to support Juan Guaido and to overthrow the Maduro regime. And what he's been doing, apparently, according to Reuters, is taking high-level meetings in Washington, pitching this idea, and also meeting with some very wealthy expats from Venezuela, and he is trying to get essentially financial support for this idea. He's also been trying to pitch it to the Trump administration. Now, so far, from what we understand, the Trump administration is not commenting one way or the other on it, but sources that Reuters spoke to, and you know those anonymous sources, who knows whether you can believe it or not, are saying that the Trump administration would probably not go for something like this. But this is the idea that's being pitched by Erik Prince, again, the founder of Blackwater, that 5,000 mercenaries be sent into Venezuela to support Guaido and to overthrow the Maduro regime.
Okay, Ben, but do you actually see the White House coming out and openly saying, yes, we are going to pay for, with taxpayer dollars, mercenaries to go into another country? That sounds extremely dangerous and like you're opening up a door that America doesn't want to open. What are some of the dangers of doing something like this in the future?
Well, I think the biggest danger of it, and according to some of the folks who have been talked to would agree with this, that you would start a civil war, essentially, if you do that, because, you know, this is very different than direct military intervention, which in and of itself creates, Scottie, a whole host of problems. I mean, there's a whole series of dangers of actually sending in U.S. military. But that aside, it's even more precarious to send in mercenaries to try to overthrow the government there, especially when 5,000 of them is not a small number. And so you would immediately know that this was going on. The fear is that you would have factions that would quickly form and a civil war would break out inside of Venezuela. Obviously, the Trump administration, what they're trying to do right now is apply economic pressure, sanctions pressure, and hope at some point we're thinking maybe even military pressure, but it would have to be organized. Sending in mercenaries would raise so many different flags, not just for people in Venezuela, but also across South America and really around the world if the U.S. were to take this step. I don't see how they could do it.
Yeah, well, and that's the question is, you know, look around the world, all the other ideas. So it's almost like when it looks like it's not going their way in other countries, those leaderships or people in those countries might expect the U.S. to do the same thing and hire more mercenaries. What is the difference, just for our audience, in bringing in mercenaries versus actually deploying our troops of the United States into a situation like this?
Well, the biggest difference, so that the audience understands, is that according to the U.S. Constitution, in order for the U.S. military to go into a country like Venezuela, first of all, if we're going to actually follow the Constitution, the U.S. Congress would have to approve it. So it would have to be approved by representatives of the people. They would approve the military action. The president would carry it out. Now, we haven't been following that model really since World War II. But even without that model, the president still has to declare that he's sending U.S. soldiers in. Taxpayers are paying for this. And so there's accountability through Congress. The difference with mercenaries is these are now trained soldiers who are no longer in the military, who essentially work for private contractors. There's no accountability for what they do. There's no accountability to the U.S. taxpayer. There's no accountability to Congress. They simply go into these places, and in many cases, they'll have immunity for the things that they do, protected by the U.S. government, but not accountable to the U.S. government. So it is an incredibly messy gray area in terms of how this operates. And as we know from the Iraq War, the use of mercenaries in that case, the use of these private contractors, that's what a much better term, right? Private contractors, it has not worked well in Afghanistan or in Iraq in terms of some of the fallout that's come from civilians being killed.
Well, Ben, I know you're going to stick with this story, and if the president decides to go down this route, I don't know necessarily if we'll ever find out or we'll hear about it beforehand, but I know you'll be the one to be able to continue to stay on top of us and let us know. Thank you, Ben.
You know I will.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.